Silent signal from little black boy to police dog, the discovery that shocked everyone. Malik Carter gave a barely noticeable signal to Coda, the German shepherd. What the dog discovered next froze everyone in place. At the bustling central station, Coda halted abruptly, ears rigid, reacting to something imperceptible to humans. Across the platform, Malik, only 8, discreetly tapped 5 times on the back of Evelyn Harper, who held his hand far too tightly. He repeated the pattern, 5 taps, pause, 5 taps. His terrified gaze met Coda's for a fleeting second before darting away, trained to avoid attention. Malik's young life had been upended 3 weeks prior. One moment he played freely in his grandmother's backyard. The next he was thrust into a gilded cage. Now, dressed in designer clothes and sporting a new haircut, he had to masquerade as the child of people who treated him like property. "Keep your head down. Don't look at anyone," Evelyn whispered, fingers squeezing until they hurt. "Remember what happens if you try anything." Detective Nolan Price followed Coda's fixed stare. "What is it, boy? Are you seeing something I'm not?" Coda's instincts were never wrong. In years of partnership, his alerts had always proved valid. But today there were no drugs, no explosives, nothing detectable. It was something more instinctive, more human. The Harper family moved toward the 3:30 p.m. train to Seattle. Evelyn in her designer attire, Victor on a phone call, commanding in his executive tone, and their 3 children pristine, well-behaved. A picture-perfect family returning from vacation. If not for Malik's eyes full of a terror no 8-year-old should bear. "Come on, Coda. We can't approach just because he's acting odd," Nolan muttered, tugging the leash. Coda didn't budge. For the first time in 7 years, he outright disobeyed a command. His paws were planted unwavering, as Malik disappeared into the crowd, tapping his secret code on Evelyn's back. Nolan frowned. Coda never acted this way without reason. What if the boy's quiet taps were not random pleading, but a deliberate code learned for one purpose: to be found? Malik had watched a documentary about police dogs at his grandmother's house weeks before his world collapsed. He'd committed the sequence, 5 quick taps, to memory, and practiced it in secret. It was a lifeline fashioned from fear, and whatever scraps of knowledge a child could salvage. Evelyn Harper noticed Coda's fixed attention and tightened her grip until Malik's knuckles blanched. "Stop being dramatic," she hissed. "No one will save you here." Victor's jaw tightened. He surveyed the platform with the sharp, distracted glance of a man used to controlling variables. Their act, a well-educated white couple rescuing unfortunate children, was 15 years in the making. Evelyn's smile hid a practiced cruelty. Victor's businesslike calm hid a readiness to enforce it. Detective Nolan Price watched the family with the patience that only years on the job buys you. Victor's constant phone checking, the strained way he held Isla's shoulder, the stiffness in Mason's posture. None of it fit the script of an exhausted family returning from vacation. "Coda, stay," Nolan ordered quietly, then released the leash. He moved through the crowd like a shadow, keeping distance but never dropping sight of Malik. Malik's plan risked everything. While the others pretended to nap or stare at screens, he discreetly tapped the code into Evelyn's back again. 5 taps, pause, 5 taps. Then, with breath held, jabbed a finger toward Victor's backpack. Coda's ears pricked. He barked once, short, sharp enough to draw Nolan's narrowed attention. Coda had not been alerting to narcotics or explosives. Nolan's instincts rummaged over possibilities until one landed with cold clarity. Multiple human scents packaged into luggage. A shipment disguised as baggage? He reached for his radio. "Dispatch. I need a documentation check on a suspicious family. Train 247, platform 12. Possible child in danger." The reply came clipped and bureaucratic. "Negative. Price. No warrant, no probable cause. We can't approach on a hunch." Malik overheard Victor's clipped voice, change of plans. "There's a German shepherd on us. Activate Protocol B," the words fell like ice. Protocol B meant sedatives, long sleeps, relocation. It meant waking in a strange place with no memory of the train, no ability to recount faces or numbers. It meant the trail vanishing. Evelyn's whisper followed. "Last warning. Next time you draw attention, you'll learn the basement." What Evelyn didn't know was that 3 weeks of captivity had made Malik an information vault. He'd listened to schedules, learned code words, memorized names and phone numbers batted back and forth during hushed calls. He had details that could fracture the whole network, if anyone could read them. Coda had begun reading another kind of scent, fear shaped into deliberate signals. Nolan's brow tightened. The pattern was no accident. A child was using a trained animal as a courier of facts. As the train doors began to hiss closed, Victor guided the children inside with practiced force. Malik was shoved into a window seat. Evelyn positioned herself as a barrier between him and the aisle. Victor faked reading a newspaper while watching every movement. Luila and Mason remained stone still, their eyes taught to look away. Malik exhaled and made a decision that would either save him or doom him. From his lap, he slid his hand beneath the seat and, with trembling fingers, tapped the final piece of information into Evelyn's back. A number he'd overheard mentioned when packages were scheduled. He tapped it twice more on his own leg so Coda could copy the rhythm. Coda registered the rhythm. He mapped it to the other scents and micro-movements he'd been tracking, and then moved, low, precise, unseen, toward Nolan. Nolan registered the shift and sent one terse transmission. Backup required. Possible trafficking operation. Platform 12, train 247. Child giving discrete signals to a dog. Evelyn's lips formed a curse. Victor's hand tightened on a strap. They did not yet know how much the boy had learned. Nolan did not yet know whether the radio would come in time. The train doors sealed. The platform slid away. And inside the carriage, Malik held his breath while a dog and a detective raced against a danger he had only just begun to name. The mastermind behind the operation, known only as the Doctor, never showed his face. Even Evelyn and Victor had never met him outside encrypted calls and wire transfers. As the train gained speed, Malik watched Evelyn type a short message on her phone. Package number 3 delivered. Client in Seattle confirmed. Transfer received, Cayman Act. 472, $45,000. That was Malik's assigned value on a marketplace that sold children under the disguise of adoption. His stomach twisted. In the next car, Detective Nolan Price discreetly showed Malik's photo to Helen Rodriguez, the train conductor. She studied the picture, frowning. I saw him with a well-dressed couple in car 7, she said. The woman showed adoption papers. Called him her son. Documents are easy to forge, Nolan murmured. And Coda doesn't give false alarms. Helen hesitated, then added. The boy looked tense, and she held him like she owned him. That was enough for Nolan. Helen, I need a discreet look. Back in car 7, Malik was risking everything. 3 weeks of captivity had taught him one thing. Documents are the heart of the operation, and he knew exactly where they were. Bathroom, he whispered weakly. I feel sick. Evelyn didn't like it, but she also didn't want vomit on luxury upholstery. Fine, Isla, go with him. 5 minutes. In the hallway, Malik whispered to Isla, Do you want to see your parents again? The girl's breath hitched. They said my parents abandoned me, she whispered. They lied, Malik said with a steady conviction that didn't sound like an 8-year-old's voice. Help me, and I'll help you. Meanwhile, Helen led Nolan and Coda to car 7. Coda immediately pawed at the compartment door, agitated, focused, certain. Nolan's eyes locked on Victor and Evelyn. He saw the signs instantly. Evelyn's rigid posture, Victor's white-knuckled grip on a black backpack, and the children's empty, robotic stillness. Helen, Nolan said quietly. I want to test their reaction to authority. Ask for their tickets again. Watch their faces. I'll stand back. Helen approached with a polite smile. Tickets and documentation, please. Routine check. Margaret froze. Victor fumbled his wallet. At that exact moment, Malik returned down the aisle with Isla. As Helen stepped forward, Malik dropped a folded note at her feet without breaking stride. Helen's sharp eyes caught it. She bent naturally, picked it up and opened it behind her inspection tablet. Childish handwriting. Crooked letters. Terrifying message. We are not their kids. Help 12 more. Black backpack the proof. Helen went pale. She shot one look toward Nolan. He understood immediately. Evelyn relaxed, assuming the danger had passed. See, act normal and no one suspects a thing. But Malik was already 2 moves ahead of her. Nolan contacted dispatch again. Confirmed abduction. Train 247, Car 7, request immediate stop and tactical response. The reply was infuriating. Denied. Not enough admissible evidence. Nolan's jaw tightened. Then I'll get evidence, he whispered, resting a hand on Coda's collar. The train neared Portland Station, scheduled for a brief 7-minute stop. Malik's plan had reached its final phase. He asked to go to the bathroom again. Evelyn rolled her eyes, annoyed but unsuspecting. This time, Malik told Isla, "When we get inside, scream, loud, say we aren't their kids. People will be around. They can't hurt us in public." Fear trembled through her, but she nodded. At the same moment, Nolan gave Helen her cue. "Ask for the children's birth certificates." Traffickers panic when forced into specifics. Helen returned. "Sorry, I need to see birth certificates for the minors." "Standard interstate procedure." Victor froze. "They're in our other luggage," he stammered. "I'll wait," Helen said, sitting down right across from them. Evelyn's fingers flew over her phone. Problem. Inspector demanding documents. Bort, reply, no, client paid. Resolve quietly. "Right then," Isla screamed from the aisle. "We are not their children. They kidnapped us. Help!" The car went dead silent. Heads turned. Eyes widened. Malik sprinted after her, shouting, "She's telling the truth. They stole us." Evelyn leapt up. "Our children are having an episode. A psychological—" Malik cut her down with one sentence that shattered her cover. "If we're your children, then say my full name." "My birthday, where I was born." Evelyn opened her mouth. No sound came out. Victor clutched that backpack like his life depended on it. Because it did. Malik Carter's voice rang through the train car, sharp and unwavering. "I was born on June 15th in Detroit. My grandmother's name is Betty Carter, and she lives at 247 Oak Street. My father's name is Jerome Carter, and he's in the Army." Every word landed like a punch. Helen Rodriguez felt it in her chest. "Sir," she said to Victor in a tone as cold as ice, "open that backpack immediately." Victor faltered. "You have no authority." Before he could finish, Detective Nolan Price stepped into the car with Coda. The dog bounded toward Malik, barking in relief at finding him safe. "I'm Detective Nolan Price. Police Department," Nolan announced, badge flashing. "Open that backpack, or I will." Evelyn Harper made a last desperate attempt. "Officers, this is a misunderstanding. The children are traumatized." Malik cut her off with the poise of someone far older than 8. "Do you want me to tell everyone here the names of the other 11 children hidden in Seattle? Do you want to hear about the $45,000 they received for me?" The car went silent. Phones clicked on. An elderly woman covered her mouth. Nolan pried open Victor's backpack. Inside, dozens of forged documents. Photos of children, altered passports, and a notebook detailing names, ages, and market values of kidnapped minors. "You are under arrest for human trafficking, kidnapping, and document forgery," Nolan declared. Evelyn shouted, frantic. "You don't understand. We were giving them opportunities. We saved them." Malik stared directly at her, unflinching. $45,000 isn't saving. It's selling." Coda positioned himself protectively between the children and the criminals, growling low. Justice was on the move. Helen radioed the conductor. "Stop the train immediately. Emergency. Criminals on board." As the train slowed, Nolan handcuffed Evelyn and Victor. "You have the right to remain silent." Victor exploded, pointing at Malik. "How did an 8-year-old child defeat us?" Malik smiled for the first time in 3 weeks, a smile carrying wisdom beyond his years. "My grandmother always said, when you're the weakest in the room, be the smartest. You thought I was merchandise. I've been studying you since day one." He produced a small tape recorder, an old model his grandmother had given him. 3 weeks of recorded conversations, names, phone numbers, addresses, all evidence to dismantle the operation. Evelyn fainted. Isla and Mason hugged Malik, tears streaming. Passengers applauded. Some offered food. Others immediately called authorities for other missing children. By the time the train stopped completely, FBI, local police, and social workers were ready. Malik's intelligence and courage had enabled a full-scale rescue in real time. Nolan knelt beside him. "How did you know Coda would understand?" "My grandmother showed me a documentary about police dogs," Malik said, petting the German shepherd. They sense danger when children can't explain it to humans. I just had to give him signals he'd recognize. Helen wiped a tear. 20 years on trains. Never seen such courage. As Evelyn and Victor were taken away in separate vehicles, Evelyn shouted one last warning. This won't stop our operation. We're just a small part. Malik's gaze never wavered. I memorized everything. Names, routes, bank accounts. When I finish with the FBI, your operation is over. Coda barked once, a triumphant echo that carried through the station. The question lingered among everyone watching. How did an 8-year-old, armed only with intelligence, courage, and a dog who trusted him, dismantle an international trafficking network? The answer was in Malik's eyes. 3 weeks of nightmare transformed into the most significant victory against child trafficking the region had ever seen. 6 months later, Malik sat in the front row of a federal courtroom, watching Evelyn and Victor receive 25-year sentences without parole. The judge declared Malik's testimony the most extraordinary this court has ever witnessed. An 8-year-old displaying courage and investigative intelligence exceeding many seasoned detectives. Evelyn's eyes, once cruel, now showed only emptiness. Victor's head hung low, a broken man defeated by a child he had treated like property. Nolan and Coda watched quietly, pride in their eyes. You know what's most impressive? Nolan whispered to Helen. This wasn't luck. Malik planned every move from day one. His intelligence triggered arrests of 43 criminals across 7 states. Malik's victory was complete. An 8-year-old boy had outsmarted an international criminal network. A total of 86 children were rescued from trafficking, forced adoption, and slave labor. The real mastermind, Dr. Harrison Blackwood, a respected Boston pediatrician, had used his position in public hospitals to select the highest-value children. Malik had memorized not just names and addresses, but bank codes, transportation routes, and even passwords overheard during calls. His 8-year-old mind had become a living database, dismantling an organization that had operated unchecked for over a decade. How did you remember everything? Asked FBI Special Agent Amanda Cross during a final interview. My grandmother always said that when you don't have the strength to fight, you fight with your head, Malik replied with the calm wisdom of someone thrice his age. They thought I was just a scared kid, but I studied them as they studied us. Operation Malik, as it was officially named, became a case study for law enforcement nationwide, an 8-year-old achieving what entire task forces had failed to do. In court, Betty Carter, Malik's grandmother, embraced him. I always knew you were special, but I never imagined you'd save so many children. Jerome Carter, Malik's father, on emergency leave from the Army, fought back tears. Son, you've done more for others in 3 weeks than many accomplish in a lifetime. Isla and Mason Harper, the children rescued from the train, began rebuilding their lives with their real families. Fuzla entered therapy, slowly reclaiming her confidence. Mason, scarred by longer captivity, faced challenges, but Malik's courage gave him hope that even impossible situations could be overcome. Detective Nolan Price was promoted to lieutenant and became a national authority on child trafficking. Coda retired as the most decorated police dog in department history, Medal of Honor pinned on his collar. For both, the greatest reward was the knowledge that instinct had prevailed when no one else had believed. Helen Rodriguez left her train job to coordinate an NGO focused on spotting signs of trafficking in public transportation. Malik taught me that heroes come in all sizes, she said. Sometimes you just have to stop and look at the children around you. Evelyn Harper, imprisoned, faced daily torment from fellow inmates who knew her crimes. Victor Harper suffered a complete breakdown, transferred to a psychiatric ward, unable to process defeat at the hands of a child. Dr. Blackwood, exposed through Malik's intelligence, lost his license, fortune, and was sentenced to life. Malik returned to school like any normal boy, carrying the certainty that he had changed the world. Grades improved, friendships blossomed, and a passion for investigation grew. One day, perhaps a future in law enforcement. When interviewed on national television, Malik spoke calmly. Bad adults always underestimate children. They think being small means being dumb. My grandmother taught me size has nothing to do with intelligence. Pay attention, never give up, And if you see a police dog, they will understand if you ask for help correctly. Coda, present in the studio, barked once in approval. Malik Carter's story proved that heroism depends not on age or strength, but courage, intelligence, and refusal to accept injustice. Evelyn Harper had tried to crush a child's spirit, but it was her arrogance that led to her downfall. At 8 years old, Malik had shown the world that the smallest warriors can fight the biggest battles. When heart and mind unite, giants, even those who consider themselves invincible, can be defeated.